Have you ever felt like you did everything right, followed all the rules, and still ended up completely surrounded by danger? We are often taught, even subconsciously, a transactional kind of faith. If I am good, God will keep me safe. If I am honest, my business will thrive. If I am kind, people will be kind to me. But what happens when that formula shatters? What happens when it feels like, no matter how faithful you were, you somehow found yourself thrown into a dark pit with absolutely no way out? Just waiting for the worst possible thing to happen? It is a truly terrifying place to be. You look up at the opening of the pit, seeing the light fade, realizing that humanly speaking, there is no rescue coming. But what if the darkest, most dangerous pit you ever face is actually the exact place where you discover your greatest, most unshakable peace? What if the absolute absence of light is simply the dark canvas God uses to display His miraculous presence? I remember when my entire world felt like it was caving in a few years ago. I had just received a phone call that completely pulled the rug out from under me. It was a random Tuesday afternoon. The sun was shining outside, traffic was moving along normally, but inside my chest, the world had come to a violently screeching halt. It was a highly stressful situation with my career, where I had acted with total integrity, but I was being blamed for a massive failure that I had absolutely nothing to do with. I had poured years of sweat, sacrifice, and honest labor into this work. I had taken the high road when others cut corners. I had been transparent when others hid the truth. And yet, here I was, the scapegoat for someone else's catastrophic mismanagement. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed later that night, staring blankly at the hardwood floor, feeling the physical weight of panic pressing down heavily on my chest. Have you ever felt that kind of heavy, suffocating anxiety where you can't even catch your breath? It feels like a literal vice grip around your lungs. I couldn't sleep. The moment I closed my eyes, a highlight reel of worst-case scenarios played on an endless loop in my mind. I couldn't eat. My stomach was tied in impossible knots. I felt like I was standing completely alone in a room full of hungry lions, just waiting to be torn apart by the overwhelming stress, the false accusations, and the deep fear of losing everything I had worked so incredibly hard to build. My reputation, my livelihood, my future, all of it felt like it was about to be devoured in an instant. I kept asking God why this was happening when I had tried so hard to do the right thing. It felt deeply unfair and completely unjust. Lord, I prayed. I did this for you. I honored you in my business dealings. I refused to compromise my morals. Why are the dishonest people walking away unscathed while I am being thrown to the wolves? The silence in my bedroom felt deafening. I wanted a rescue. I wanted God to reach down, rewind time, and fix the injustice before it ever reached my doorstep. I wanted Him to prevent the crisis entirely. But looking back now, I realize that my desperate prayers and that terrifying season taught me something profound about the true nature of God's peace and the ancient, timeless story of a man who found himself in a very literal pit of despair. If you grew up in church or attended Sunday school, you probably know the story of Daniel in the lion's den. It's often taught as a cute children's story, complete with brightly colored felt board lions that look more like oversized, friendly house cats. But the reality of Daniel chapter 6 is anything but cute. It is a gritty, terrifying narrative about a man who faced the ultimate injustice. Daniel was a man of impeccable character. The Bible says he had an excellent spirit in him. He was faithful, he was honest, and he was so incredibly gifted at his job that the king planned to set him over the entire realm. But his success bred intense, bitter jealousy. The other government officials hated him for his integrity, because his light exposed their darkness. So they set a trap. They couldn't find any actual dirt or corruption on Daniel, so they manufactured a crisis using his very faith against him. They tricked the king into signing an irrevocable law that anyone who prayed to any god or man other than the king for 30 days would be cast into the den of lions. What did Daniel do when he heard about this decree? He didn't panic. He didn't hire a crisis management team. He didn't compromise his values or decide to hide his faith just until the heat died down. He went home, went to his upper room with his windows open toward Jerusalem, got down on his knees 3 times that day, and prayed and gave thanks before his God, exactly as he had always done. Daniel did everything right, and what was his reward? He was arrested, dragged before the king, and thrown into a pit of starved, vicious beasts. Imagine the sensory overload of that terrible moment. The heavy stone rolling over the mouth of the den, sealing him in absolute darkness. The putrid smell of death and decay. The low, guttural growls echoing off the cold stone walls. The glowing eyes slowly circling him in the pitch black. Daniel had no weapons. He had no escape route. He was entirely at the mercy of circumstances he could not control. But here is the profound truth that shifted my entire perspective during my own crisis. God did not save Daniel from the lion's den. He saved Daniel from the lion's den. God could have easily struck down the jealous officials before the decree was ever signed. He could have given the king a change of heart before the arrest was made. But he didn't. He allowed Daniel to experience the terrifying descent into the pit so that he could demonstrate a far greater, far more intimate miracle. The Bible tells us that God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths. They didn't even scratch him. While the king paced the marble floors of his luxurious palace all night, completely tormented by guilt and anxiety, Daniel was likely sleeping peacefully right in the middle of a pack of deadly predators. The man in the palace was a prisoner to his fear, but the man in the pit was completely free. We all face lions in our lives. Your lion might not be a false accusation at work. Your lion might be a terrifying medical diagnosis that you just received from your doctor. It might be a child who has completely rebelled and walked away from everything you poured into them. Your lion might be a mountain of debt, a sudden and unexpected job loss, a broken marriage, or a crushing wave of clinical depression. The lions are roaring. The jaws are snapping. The circumstances are entirely out of your control, and the enemy is whispering in the dark that you are finally going to be devoured. But I want to encourage you with what happened to me on that bedroom floor. As I lay there weeping, begging God to change my circumstances, my prayers began to shift. I stopped asking God to magically transport me out of the den, and I started asking Him to simply come into the den with me. And in that moment, the most inexplicable thing happened. My circumstances didn't change immediately. The false accusations were still out there. The career crisis was still looming over my head. But the atmosphere in my heart completely shifted. A heavy, warm blanket of peace settled over my mind. The racing thoughts slowed down. The physical vice grip on my chest loosened, and I could finally take a deep breath. God was shutting the mouths of my lions. He was shutting the mouth of anxiety. He was shutting the mouth of panic. He was shutting the mouth of despair. I didn't know how the situation was going to resolve, but I suddenly knew, with absolute, unwavering certainty, that I was going to be okay. The Lord of the angel armies was standing in the room with me. Eventually, the truth came out in my situation. The false accusations were dismantled by the facts, my name was entirely cleared, and the career I thought was over was actually restored and strengthened beyond what it was before. But the greatest victory of that season wasn't the vindication. It was the profound peace I found before the vindication ever arrived. It was learning that God's presence in the dark is far more comforting than a life lived only in the light. If you are in a dark pit today, feeling completely surrounded by circumstances that threaten to destroy you, please hear this. You are not alone. Do not look at the lions. Do not focus on the snapping jaws of your problems or the unfairness of your situation. Look at the angel of the Lord, who is standing right there beside you in the dark. He has the power to shut the mouths of your greatest fears. You can experience the deepest, most restful peace of your entire life, not when the danger is gone, but right there, surrounded by lions, resting safely in the palm of His mighty hand.